My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast. We are back for the Great Canadian Baking Show.
Oh, and wasn't this first episode just a delight?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Oh, lifted my spirits, buoyed my spirits.
Something else, your spirits. It's all about...
Poured me spirits.
Poured your spirits. Well, you know, that's something else it did. We are absolutely delighted to be back, obviously. It's good to be back on familiar turf.
Oh, absolutely. Under the pavilion.
Under the wonderful, all-encompassing gaze of the pavilion.
Yes.
Not a tent. It's a pavilion.
Again, I'm still waiting for them to add little triangular flags to the turrets. I mean, in the beautiful sunny yellow, like the deck furniture.
It would be
the
wonderful.
patio furniture.
Patio furniture.
The patio furniture, darling.
Oh, darling, are we talking about the patio?
Yes.
No, but obviously we are back for season 5 of the Great Canadian Baking Show.
Oh my gosh, it's like coming home to a familiar, comfortable chair, and you put on your Ugg boots and you what's it called? The thing that is like a wrap that is for night.
I thought you were going to talk about your spirits again.
Just wrap yourself in a haunted dressing gown.
There you go.
Robe, as people call it.
That thing you wrap yourself in.
At night time.
I'm a historian. I nearly went linen.
Yes. Yes, after the
before being placed into a sarcophagus. Obviously, we are thrilled to be back. We are thrilled to have 10 brand new bakers to get to know. We are also thrilled to have 4 very familiar faces.
I know, friends of the show.
Friends of the show, all 4 friends of the show. And just a bit of a heads up, you will hear from them.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not today.
But you will be hearing from them over the course.
Today in the background you may hear our cat having a chat to the birds outside.
Because this is Australia.
Yeah, this is Australia. And it's prime time lorikeet feeding here at 6 p.m. in Aussie land.
Here in Miscellaneous City.
Yes.
So let's get into it. Let's start with the obvious. Mm-hmm. Anne's dress.
Holy moly. Well, that is just pretty. I mean, Alan and Kyla and Bruno, they all looked lovely too.
Alan is always, the coolest man you could possibly find.
Yes.
Bruno is just Bruno. What else can you say? Kyla, just glamour personified.
Exactly.
And then Anne, who is just, it's next level every single time.
Absolutely. Just when you think she's topped it, like, out she walks in this frocking great dress.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Frocking great.
I liked later on when she turned around, I think it was to Karen, and went, I'd like to wear one of your flowers in my hair.
It would match.
It would have matched the dress perfectly. Bruno also had a really cool, pocket handkerchief that I loved that. I was all over that.
Yeah. Kyla was in that just Princess Di blue.
And
is what I'll
and
call
Alan
it.
going brimless.
Yes.
Brimless hat.
It's a Kylie Minogue statement. Speaking of which,
We'll get to Kylie. So,
okay.
We open with a signature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we always do, and it's the pound cake.
It is.
Now, again, the most
everyone likes a good pound cake.
I thought it was real. It's a good start because it's a basic cake, but they gave them the chance to put their own spin on it. Now, we were talking before we started recording, and the Madeira is probably the more famous example of the pound cake that you'd find around these parts.
Oh yes, I like a good Madeira cake that you just pop into the supermarket.
Just go and get a quick, easy cut Madeira cake, and off you go.
And the interesting thing, right? If you go to the same section in an Australian supermarket, not only will you find a Madeira cake,
but you'll find the technical. But we'll come to that in a minute.
Technical as well.
We'll come to that in a minute.
So next time I walk into an IGA, I'm expecting them to stock some fault line cakes as well.
I can't wait for it. I can't wait for a geode. Anyway. Yeah. Let's get into it. So what we're going to do is, as we go through talking about the signature, we're going to introduce you to the people.
Oh, yes.
We're going to learn. We're going to meet. We're going to grow together. We're going to learn together.
We are, and we're going to meet some delightful people.
And we're going to open with Steve. Now, remember, there is Steve and there is Stephen.
Okay.
Now, this is better than what they did on the last series of British, where they had 2 people with the exact same name and didn't bother to shorten one.
No.
Which made it nice and awkward. This time, they've shortened one.
Thank goodness. So we've got Steve, who is a yogi. He's a meditation teacher as well. I've done some meditation teaching. But the most brilliant thing about Steve is he reminds me of my friend Steve here in Australia, because you and I both looked and we've gone, oh my God, that's Steve. And he's got the same name.
And yeah, same habits, same. It looks the same.
Yes.
It's him. So, like, did he go over that? No, that's definitely Canadian. Okay, that's interesting.
Like, can twins get accidentally
separated across continents?
Across continents and end up with the same name?
Well, we'll find out.
Yes.
So he was going with a chai and chocolate butterfly cake. He had mango curd. He had lime sugar cookies. And he had a candy melt butterfly on top of it. And what I really loved was this was the moment where you always have those moments in Bake Off, and the first couple of times where you meet people, where you get to work out how people are viewing the tent or the shed or the pavilion, whatever it happens to be that they're in.
Yeah.
And what we got from Steve was where Bruno went, well, is 2 hours enough for this? And Steve just looked at him and goes, no, it's not.
He's like, but I'm here. And
Kyla's like, well, that puts us in a little bit of a panic now. Then we got to meet Vincent.
Vincenzo.
Now, Vincent, a couple of interesting things about Vincent. First of all, the most important thing from a baking perspective.
Yes.
You are a brave individual if you approach a challenge inside the pavilion where butter is required and you don't use butter. Now, we use buttermilk.
Yes.
But we all know.
See, I didn't know you could milk butter.
Have you tried?
Obviously not hard enough.
You need to work harder.
Yes.
Work harder, not smarter. Well,
my grandfather was a dairy farmer. He's going to be very disappointed in me that I cannot milk butter.
How have you not just gone to the fridge and just spent hours squeezing the butter?
Trying to milk it up.
Wring that butter until it's a liquid. Some call it melting. I call it milking. Anyway, but Vincent's bold because he goes, like Bruno goes, what about the butter? And he goes, there's no butter in it. And Bruno just looks at him like, you said words, but they don't compute.
No, there's going to be a reckoning for Vincent, I believe. Like, there's going to be the baking gods are going to, demand a sacrifice, and a sacrifice of like triple the amount of butter because he missed it.
Now he's saved by the fact that he does have some pretty cute dogs, and
Yes.
they showed he and his partner, and he's a graphic designer. There's a couple of graphic designers this year.
And look, Vincent, I didn't get too excited, but I've gone, there's another one for the Mardi Gras float.
Yeah, we have a big Mardi Gras float in preparation.
And we're talking about the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras.
Yes, we are. So there's a big Mardi Gras float in planning. We've talked to Jay, obviously, and Jay is one of the foundation members of the float.
Yeah.
And we're putting it together.
Sprinkle cannons.
Yeah, we've got it all planned out. So, and we're starting to open up. Now Mardi Gras next year will be a thing.
Maybe we
feel
have
free.
like a foam party, but like a butter frosting party. Like,
we'll get to someone who would fire buttercream in everyone in a minute because they're coming. Then Amanda.
Yes.
Now we meet Amanda through the first I forgot moment, and what would you forget? Now you're in the shed. You're like, you're in the pavilion. You're like, what am I going to forget?
Sugar.
That's it. I knew I forgot something. I love when she starts mixing. Goes, it creams so much better when you put sugar in it.
Now I love Amanda. One, she's from PEI.
Yep.
Two, I'm kind of like, I feel her. Like, I see myself in her. Like, she's a distant Canadian cousin of mine, I've decided.
Yep.
And I feel she's the first one. Like, she's sensitive to the whimsy of Jude.
She does. There are a couple of whimsical people.
Yes.
And Kyla references whimsy at one point in this.
Yes.
So obviously the spirit of Jude is still in there. And hey, Jude. Yeah. Just give her a call out. We've got to give her a call out every year.
Oh, absolutely.
I know she listens.
She's the true Canadian lady. Like,
She sends me a message every first episode. Jude sends me a message.
Aww.
So thank you, Jude. Again, love that.
Yes. I hope you poop and pucks hasn't gotten too painful.
Yeah. the pooping of puck should not be painful for anybody. No. Now, obviously, she went with a chocolate coffee glaze and a sugar bowl top, and she also stacked them, which was an interesting call to stack pound cake, and we'll come to that when Kyla talks about it later on.
Did she measure it and she's like, oh, it's not quite a pound. Better give them more than a pound than less than a pound.
It up. Then we get to Amy. Now, Amy's really cool. I loved the fact that she set a brand out early on.
Yep.
She decided that she was starting with rhubarb.
Yeah,
which it's a way to start, and it was the chopping of the rhubarb, but then the ribboning of the rhubarb.
Oh, I've never seen rhubarb ribbons.
The rhubarb ribbons were quite rhythmical.
Did Jojo Siwa also get some rhubarb ribbons?
Hey guys, it's me, Jojo. I'm here in baking, and
I'm making ribbons with rhubarb.
I'm making rhubarb ribbons. I'm here. I'm dancing with the stars. It's me, Jojo. No, I really enjoyed. Now she went with an Earl Grey and rhubarb which is an interesting flavour combination. Obviously.
But it sounds good because you'd have like an Earl Grey tea with your rhubarb pie.
Now they did say, I love when they give a bit of background, and with her they went uni student and runner. Now she might be there on a running scholarship. I like the idea that she's there on a running degree. Not a scholarship. That's her degree. She has lectures in running. She has tutorials in running. She writes essays on running.
She's now looking at doing a thesis on running.
Yep,
while running.
Jogging.
Jogging.
The thesis is on jogging because you've got to expand outside of your area.
Oh, okay. Got to extend that. Or is it like, when does jogging become fast walking and when does fast walking become jogging?
That's why you need a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Amy's doing.
Thank you, Amy.
Amy's answering the big questions of life. When is jogging fast walking and when does it become running? What is the barrier? Yes. If you could get back to us with that report, really appreciate your time.
You're doing God's work, Amy.
You really are. The ribbons were spectacular. Now, Marion also has a design background.
Yeah, I loved watching her drawings and how she's just very colourful.
Now, they describe hers as grapefruit and blackberry cake with a river of jam.
Ooh, and she makes her own jam.
Yeah, the river of jam is interesting. Making your own river. I'd like to imagine her house is very Wonka-esque.
Get out of my head! I was just thinking that, like she's got to shoo some little boy who falls into her jam river. She's like, you've polluted it!
You've ruined the river of jam!
Except she has well-paid, factory workers who,
she's not using
great
slaves.
Benefits. No. They've got great plans and...
Healthcare.
And benefits, and they get holidays and...
Yeah, healthcare and dental, and they're very well treated.
Yeah.
And when they come out and sing, it's just because they're happy.
Exactly.
It's not because they're getting over the doldrum of slavery like Willy Wonka. Anyway, moving on. Now that we've destroyed something, because we need to, it's time to bring back a classic. I have been waiting for this moment for far too long. Stephen.
It's been a year.
Stephen.
This
is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 da. Regina! Experience Regina! Da, 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 da. Oh, so happy to have a Regina Baker back.
It just makes me so happy. We've hosted a Virgie's
We've hosted a Virgie's in Regina. We've been to prison in Regina. We've got out of debtors prison in Regina.
Yes.
We've
flown home from Regina.
We've enjoyed the car park of the casino.
Lots of lovely seafood.
Waved to Jody.
Yes, met the Uber sled dogs.
Yep, met Uber sled. We've got a lot of affinity with Regina, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it was good to see Stephen in there because I'm like, oh, thank you. We finally get to go back to our Regina heritage. Sesame caramel brittle and almond sesame crumble.
Yum.
And more importantly, and something that we've actually seen a fair bit of in Australia, was the introduction of pandan.
Yeah, and I'm loving this trend because, when pandan first came out, I wasn't a fan, to be honest. My white sensibility...
You weren't a fan of pandan?
I was not a pandan fan.
We're not a pandan fan?
Now I'm a pandan stan.
Yeah, now you're a pandan stan. You've gone from not being a pandan fan to a pandan stan.
Yes.
Done well.
Yeah, so I think that, seeing it more and, broadening my horizons...
I loved everybody's shock when he cut open and they're like...
It was so green.
Yeah.
Some of my favourite combinations are pandan and ube, that purple and that green and just...
it's the bright, visceral sort of contrast. It's really cool.
And then the flavours together, brilliant.
They work quite well. It's a form of green that I don't mind. We'll come to the one I don't like later on.
You know what? It's not easy being green.
It's not easy being green. We'll talk in a minute. Dougal. Now, couple of things I loved about Dougal. First of all,
yes,
let's give a shout out. He was watching our Queen.
Oh, hells yeah!
He was watching our Queen, Sheldon.
The Queen of the Pavilion.
Shout out to Sheldon.
Yes.
So maple cinnamon pecan cake with boiled icing and sponge toffee topping. The sponge toffee seems to be a bit of a thing.
But is sponge toffee honeycomb?
No idea. I don't think so. I think it's different.
Is it? I'm going to Google. You keep talking about this.
It looked like honeycomb, but I don't think it is honeycomb.
I think it is. It looks I reckon it tastes like honeycomb too. I don't care. I just want it in my face. I'm a bandit of honeycomb. I used to get into trouble from my friend Stacey's dad, and Stacey's dad was a cop. And he was a bit
Stacey's dad has got it really bad. Anyway.
He had a honeycomb jar, right?
Yeah.
And I'd go over to Stacey's house of an afternoon, and my biggest thing was to not let Stacey or any of her family catch me raiding his honeycomb jar. And they always knew when Kristie had been.
Okay, So sponge, I looked it up while you were doing the story because you got distracted.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Sponge toffee is honeycomb toffee. It's honeycomb.
It is honeycomb.
Yeah,
brilliant.
So it's all over. It's is it the same? It's slightly different. The texture's slightly different. One is obviously spongy and one is more crunchy.
Oh, so
it's a spongy honeycomb basically.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I like it. I like honeycomb chewy or crisp. I don't care. Just give it to me.
Yes. So
sponge me up, baby.
And we get to see a little bit.
I feel like Elaine from Seinfeld.
We get anyway.
Sponge-worthy.
We get to see a lot more of him later on, especially in one of our favourite Bake Off traditions. We get to see him in the caring mode, and we get to see a lot of. I like Dougal a lot. We'll talk a bit more about him shortly.
Yes.
Now, she's spinning around everybody. Move out of her way.
Yes.
I know you're feeling it because you like it like this.
Oh my goodness! It's the one. It's the only. It's Kylie Minogue.
Elena.
But
she's Kylie.
It's Kylie Minogue.
Second time
we've had an Aussie pretending not to be themselves in the shed. Now this is clearly Kylie Minogue because you do not get pocket-sized little blondes like that have a huge Instagram following and
exactly.
It's the Princess of Pop herself.
It is the Princess of Pop herself, but we're going to call her Elena because that's what she's going by.
Okay.
But we know
Kylie.
We know. We are very aware.
And this whole I don't know what a Lemington is.
Oh, yeah, rubbish.
Yeah,
we'll come back to that. So she's a chess champion apparently.
Oh yeah, I can imagine when you're on tour and you're having some downtime.
Nada's had nothing but chess tournaments.
Oh yeah, her
Mrs. Mangle.
Yes.
A chess bandit.
Oh, Harold, Jason Donovan, all into it.
And the Canadians are going, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yes.
And the answer is, we're not going to bother telling you. Look it up.
Yep.
So, now she's from Romania.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coconut and carrot.
Sounds a lot like Australia. Same syllables.
Now, coconut and carrot cake with rice paper and isomalt. Now, I was really intrigued by there was a lot of isomalt in this episode.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, none of it went wrong, which is
No.
not really what you'd call usual.
No, that's a skill set.
Like, I saw isomalt mentioned, I went, oh, here we go. And then there was another one mentioned isomalt, I went, oh, here we go. And then, it worked. And I'm like, hang on a minute. What is this thing? Isomalt's supposed to fail.
Yeah, it's just lovely to see when something goes right. I mean, there was a few issues with the bakes all around, like a few people overcooking or just undercooking, but the isomalt was on point.
It was fantastically on point. By the way, the people will be able to hear the dinging in the background that's going on there.
Yeah.
It's my calendar, which keeps on telling me that there is a special day tomorrow in the Cocos and Keeling Islands.
Oh, really?
And for some reason,
it really wants you to know.
It won't go away. So apologies, but hello to all of our listeners in the Cocos and Keeling Islands.
Yes.
Because I'm sure you're all listening.
Oh,
big
absolutely.
Audiences over there.
Big fans
Massive
of Canadian
audiences.
Bake Off, and
Huge.
particularly this podcast.
The other thing that Elena had was the jumbo carrot.
Yeah,
they were huge.
No, they're just normal-sized carrots. But
She's tiny.
When she's holding them, like you could give
The Princess of Pop is tiny.
Yeah, you give her a pea and it looks like an apple. Like the Princess of Pop.
I love
is
Dan's comment.
teeny-tiny.
I love Dan's comment where she's like, "You could just put that carrot on top of the cake and go, I'm done."
It's a cake. It's carrot.
That's the decoration. I mean, look at it. It's a giant carrot.
Imagine the rabbits going after that. Just like these giant prehistoric rabbits.
And at this point, Amanda decided to sum up baking in general. And I think, look, every year we get someone who comes up with a statement that sort of, for me, sums up the vibe of baking.
Yeah.
And we had Amanda this year who simply said, I'm just grabbing things and pouring caramel over them. And if that's not baking in a nutshell, I don't know what is.
I feel that's what got her through COVID. Like, just all the lockdowns.
Like everything.
Her children, Mum, not again!
No, I'm not having another caramel bath. You'll like it. I'm covering everything.
And there's former baker Wendy just strolling along going, oh, there's Amanda with the caramel again.
Oh, what else are we going to do on PEI?
I know, I'm just presuming that all the PEI, like, bakers just live in a Baker Street.
I mean, it's in Baker Street, literally.
Baker Street, Bakersville.
I'd hum more, but they want royalties. So we're going to move on instead to Canal. So, the Buttercream King.
He was.
What a bandit for buttercream. Look,
lucky there was Canal there because he made up for Vincent.
He was balancing out. Look, there was a bit of an imbalance in the force.
Yeah.
In Vincent not having any butter. Mm-hmm. So Canal decided he was going to make a pure buttercream lemon.
Which is awesome. awesome.
It looked amazing, and as
I
Bruno
don't think
said,
you could do that with buttercream.
as Bruno said, it looked good. But what Canal mentioned, and I loved the fact he had to mention it when we get to everyone trying to cool everything down. And everyone's like, oh, is yours cool enough yet? And he goes, well, mine has to be. I'm putting pure buttercream on top of it. And if it's still warm, the lemon's going to melt.
Like, that takes some balls. Like, I'm going into the bake-off pavilion. With buttercream on my first bake and just trusting that the gods aren't going to make the tent boiling hot.
And let's face it, we know from talking to everyone that pavilion
it's a steamy room.
Really steamy. And I know that in the last, while they were filming this series, that was Canada's massive heat wave.
Do you think Steve then just ran it like random Bikram sessions in between?
All right, everybody, no more baking. We're going to Bikram.
Yeah. Hot yoga.
Everybody Bikram. And then we get to Karen. Now, I like this Karen because it's a Karen with a C, not a Karen with a K. So... she's a Karen with a C. Mm-hmm. She's a Karen with a dog who high fives.
And now we need to find this dog's name.
Because is the dog related vaguely
to Nimbus?
It looked a little bit like Nimbus.
Like, I think they might be cousins. Like different cousins, like me and Amanda. Like,
yes.
you know.
Yeah, you're like, you know. Yeah, she doesn't know yet.
She lives on an island. I live on a bigger island.
She doesn't know yet. She will, but she doesn't know yet.
We'll go on, what's it called, Ancestry.com?
I want to know, a Nimbus... Is Nimbus related to Karen's dog? And what is Karen's dog's name?
Do you think it would be Strata? What's another... Cumulus.
I think that would make sense. So we'll find out anyway, hopefully. Let us know, Karen, please. So she was using the Chinese puff pastry to make Lotus Flowers. And you can tell that she's seen Bake Off before because she went, we've made 10, we're hoping for 5. And I'm like, that's strategy. I'm not relying on a maximum number here.
No, you're not. I'm just making this and that's that. You're like, I'm playing the odds right.
We saw that the other day in...
playing the cards.
We saw that the other day for anyone who's vaguely seen there's a MasterChef Australia doing their celebrity one at the moment. Mm-hmm. And one of the celebrities the other day, it was actually Tilly Ramsey, it was Gordon Ramsay's daughter, who was making, the chocolate fondants. And she's like, I've made a tester.
Yep, because I made 2 others,
and made others just in case, so she could find all that out. And these are the tricks that you need to do. You always make extra. Now, Linda, as we know, used to make extra, but that was to stop Dan Levy from stealing it all.
Yes, now, I am hoping that the tributes to the hosts are happening.
I did notice that you did have Anne just hovering.
Yeah.
Alan was less hovery at the moment, but I like to think he's a ninja.
He just swoops in.
He just swoops, takes it and runs. And he can reach from distance. That's the difference. Ooh. Alan can reach from the other side of the pavilion.
Do you think under his hat there's like an extender claw as well that he can grab, and then he's got that extra extension?
I want to check this out as we go through the series. As we move through the series and more food is being taken, does Alan's hat get bigger? Because we've hypothesized before what's under the hat.
But it doesn't compute for this one because it's a brimless hat.
But that's what I mean. The start, maybe there's an agreement between he and Anne. I'll take episode 1. You take episode 2. It's odds and evens.
Yeah, or maybe their agents hashed it out in a duel.
Part of the contract. Contract negotiations. Now, which one of us gets food in which weeks?
They decided they got both agents to roll down the hill from the pavilion, and whoever reached the bottom first.
Now,
anyway, that's just my
Karen was also it was a lemon tea pound cake that she made with those flowers on top of it. Then we got Dougal. They cut back to Dougal, who goes, you're sitting there at home and you're watching the show, and you look at them and you go, no, don't open the oven. No, don't want to open the oven. And then you're in here, and you want to open the oven. And it's everything we've ever heard from people. Whenever we talk to them, they're like, yeah, you sit at home and you go, why would you, that's stupid. Why would you do it? That's dumb. And then you're in there and you're doing it.
Okay, I just had a thought for an invention, right, for bakers. So you know how they have cameras that can go into the deep sea and actually go near volcanoes and shit? Like they with pressure and heat.
You're thinking oven cameras, aren't you?
Oven cameras, but not just cameras, because you don't want it from one angle. You want a little drone, like a little oven drone.
An oven drone.
Do
you want the oven drone to have its own probe?
Yeah, and it can test the temperature.
So we're marketing something now. I feel like this is almost like a Shark Tank sort of pitch.
We've got no prototype. We've got no business strategy.
But
it's an idea.
We've seen people on Shark Tank and they don't have that either, so why not? We're pitching an oven drone with a remote probe.
Yeah. And it's a multi-probe. It can test for, I don't know, leakage.
We're looking for $10.5 million for 10%.
And it's also got a little audio, so if you want to listen to the bake,
we'll come to listening to the bake shortly. So we then began a bake-off tradition. It's not bake-off until people are waving at their cakes.
Yes, and out come the cookie sheets.
Out come the cookie sheets, out come the waving. And I loved the ballet they had going on at the fridges.
Yes, people going in, people coming out.
I'd like to think that Kunal can work that in if he goes with the idea of creating a proper bake-off ballet.
Yes.
I like the idea that maybe he can integrate the fridge dance.
Like the call of the cookie sheets.
Yes.
And... You know, if the cookie sheet's not working, you've got to go to the fridge. And if the fridge is packed, then you've got to work around the other bakers.
Then you start running around.
Of movement and elegance and grace in the hopes that you do not drop your cake.
You really
so
don't.
Much at stake.
You really don't want to drop the cake. Now, also, just before the judging happened, we had Amy and Anne standing there, and Amy's piping and Anne's going, "We've got a blob going and another blob going." Is this the technical term? That's a technical term, right? That's a real technical term. Yes, Anne, that's a blob.
Perfect. What else would you call it?
Makes perfect sense.
Is there like some crazy French word? Who cares?
Who cares?
It just means blob in French.
Yeah, exactly. Blob in French.
Le blob.
Bruno, I'd like to ask a favour.
What does blob in
What's
French?
What's blob in French? Because it's not le blob. Sorry, I forgot.
It'd be funny if it was Le Blob.
I forgot to say Virgie. I forgot to say Virgie Hall of Famer Bruno, of course.
Yes.
After last year's Virgies, which I still haven't won. Anyway, moving on to the judging.
Yes.
So Marion, they said that they could tell that she was a designer.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno thought that her homemade jam was the rock star.
Oh yeah.
Completely.
It's like Robbie Williams. Is he a rock? No, he's a pop star. Who's a rock star?
Oh, this would be good.
Angus Young.
That'll do.
Yeah.
Angus Young and Jam, they're very similar.
Yeah. Pearl Jam. Oh my God.
Pearl
it's
Eddie Vedder. There you go. Done. Amanda. Now, Kyla would not have stacked the pound cakes. Bruno thought that the flavours were a bit too subtle as well, which was really interesting. Because they looked heavy, but the flavours weren't apparently heavy. Dougal. They said it was a great choice of piping tip. Now, I do want to point out, this is the only show on television where that's a sentence. You know what? Great choice of piping tip. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. I've thought about this.
His icing did look so
it was perfect
and sumptuous, though. Like,
but this was the first one. It got better.
Yes,
his piping at the end in the showstopper was magnificent.
I'm excited.
I'm really happy to see his piping. Now they did point out that the icing was like a cloud, but then also pointed out that the cake was like dry.
It hadn't rained yet, obviously.
Yeah, the rains were coming, but they weren't here.
Marge.
So Vincent. Now they did say that he overmixed the batter, but he told them that before they could. And it was really interesting because Bruno liked the flavour, and the judges looked at him and just went, "We can see that you know what the problem was.
Yeah.
You told us what the problem was, so we're not worried about it.
You'll be okay.
We're not worried about it," because he went, "I knocked too much air out of it. I overmixed it." Like, and that was what he said straight up. So when they looked at it, they went, "Well, yep." You knew. Now, Karen. Now, Kyla said that it was unique as a style, and it was very unique.
It was different.
But they also said that the cake was a little bit dry and a little bit over. And that was a bit of a theme. We saw a lot of under and a lot of over.
Yeah.
But that's also, we've talked about this before, getting used to those ovens is really tricky.
Yeah, and look,
why you start with Cake Week.
Yes, exactly, because you're getting used to everything. You don't want to have to think too much. You want a bit of thought, but not too much.
Now, Amy's, they literally just said, was perfectly glazed, and they really liked the decoration she'd gone with as well. They liked the ribbons, so
yes,
that was pretty.
You know why she gets ribbons? She runs a lot.
She does. That's why. Oh, look at that! I didn't even think of that.
I never got a ribbon for running, unless there were only 3 of us in the race.
I've mentioned this on a podcast previously, but my greatest feat in athletics was winning the tunnel ball and Newcombe ball
against who?
House teams.
Oh, okay.
School. I won tunnel and Newcombe ball. I led the team to glory.
I thought you were going to say against Ian Thorpe.
No,
if you haven't listened to the MasterChef podcast, just listen to Chris talk about his reminiscing about the good old days.
Hanging out with world champion and Olympic champion swimmer.
Thorpe.
Anyway, moving on.
My sister's a good runner. She beat Melinda Gainsford Taylor.
She got ribbons?
Yeah, she was 11.
Did she put them on top of cakes?
Probably.
Anyway, so then we've got Elena, Kylie.
Yes.
Visually appealing, needed a bit more time. It was a bit spongy, but the flavour was quite good. That was also a bit of a theme with hers. It was almost every bake.
Do you think she tried by singing, "Give me just a little more time"? And
if the Canadians don't know the Kylie Minogue back catalogue here, they are thoroughly confused.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, they said that it was playful, and that's a bit of a theme with his stuff too. And they said that the cake was really good, but the mango just made it pop. I like when Kylie uses the word pop. Anyway, Canal, they said there were lots of details there that were really good. Unfortunately, the bottom of the cake was underbaked.
Yeah, look, I just think Canal, he talked about the baking gods and making them happy. I just don't think you got your sacrifice right.
Something was wrong. Don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen, they said there was an epic cross-section thanks to the pandan. Delicious, and it hit the brief of a pound cake perfectly.
Yep.
Now that we've done that, let's get on to the thing we've been waiting for.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, I had a message about a couple of hours before I started watching the episode. Mm-hmm. I got a message from, friend of the show, friend of the podcast, and season 4 contestant.
Yes.
The wonderful Larry. Larry messaged me and goes, "You are going to love the technical." And I'm like, is he being ironic? Am I going to hate it?
Is it going to be based on matcha?
Is it going to
yuzu?
be matcha and yuzu in some form? I don't know.
Yeah, deep fried, no baking whatsoever.
And then I looked and I watched and I messaged him back and I went, "No, you're right. I love it." Because, ladies and gentlemen, Lamingtons! They went, "We're going to the outback and going a bit down under." And I'm like, oh, God, they didn't. They didn't. Lamingtons. Now, if you listen to our Kyla episode, I'm sure we mentioned Lamingtons on there.
Yes.
And I know we've talked to her about Australian baking.
Look, we're very proud. Like, there's a few things to be proud of here in Australia. We have a very torrid history, but some of the things you can be proud of in Australia is our baking.
Oh, we bake brilliantly.
From Neenish tarts, whether you're a pink or a white person, doesn't matter. Neenish tarts.
Not getting into that.
Lamingtons, up there. Anzac biscuits, fantastic.
Now I know...
Pumpkin scones, Australian.
Now I know
Pavlova...
New Zealander, but still, we claim it. We take it. It's like Russell Crowe. We take it when it's good. If you don't like it, it's Kiwi. But
Peach Melba.
Peach Melba. Yeah, that'll do. So, now I know that Bake Canadian Takeoff have mentioned Anzac biscuits. I haven't got to listen yet, but I know they mentioned Anzac cookies, and they talked about Australian baking, so I'm going to have a listen, and I might even fire off a response on social media to their talk about Australian baking.
Wow.
So keep your ears open for that. It's going to happen. But in the meantime,
yes,
let's talk about the Humble Lamington.
Okay.
Because I'm not saying that this is us that did this, but
we're here.
I think we're probably the most high-profile Australians connected.
Look, if we didn't like outwardly influence this, we subconsciously influence this.
I'm claiming credit. So until I'm proven otherwise, I'm claiming credit.
If we just mention it here and there to different people, it just seeps into their subconscious until all they want to do is
we didn't get any references to the pavilion over the tent.
No.
But I'm going to take the idea that Lamingtons is the first technical.
So Lamingtons, what do they remind you of?
So Lamingtons are incredibly popular in Australia.
Yep.
They are everywhere.
Yep, you can get them at the local bakery.
Local supermarket we mentioned before. You can
get them in finger form, which just means
Kyla talked about the idea of them needing to be perfect squares. Now, yes,
but if your nan made them, not that mine did, it was more kind of like my friends' nans. Yeah. They'd make them sometimes in a round sponge tin because that's all they had, or in one of those like kind of slightly deep trays that kind of. And it rose in the middle, but not quite on the side. So you get these wedge-shaped Lamingtons.
So the Lamington it's got a long and storied tradition in Australia. So
named after Lord and Lady Lamington. Queensland.
So first of all, and importantly enough, the way the Lamingtons are made now and the way they're made on the show, it's reminiscent of how they were made, but it's not quite exact.
One thing, the glaze has to be thinner.
Yes.
It's almost like chocolate water.
Yeah, it's enough to coat it, but not ultra thick.
And it kind of soaks into the sponge, not deeply, just probably like 2 millimeters. Yeah.
The second thing is the type of sponge. Now, traditionally, it's day-old sponge.
Because the belief is, because the history of it is either Lord Lamington and Lady Lamington.
Lord and Lady Lamington.
Either had their French chef go, "Oh, there's guests and I've got nothing to prepare." and had to use what was there.
Sorry, Bruno, for the accent.
No, it is perfect French. What are you talking about? Or they went to Toowoomba. Yes, that's a real place. I'm not making this up. Lord and Lady Leamington of Queensland go to Toowoomba, and someone put on a nice lunch for them there and created this dessert and named it after them.
Yes. So the Lamington is traditionally, it's usually day-old sponge. Now...
But it's not high class.
No, it's not. It's the fresh sponge thing is a fairly recent thing, and like I'm happy for it because I actually don't mind the fact that they're fresh.
Yeah, not dry as a dry.
No, because they usually get really dry. They can get really dry, but they keep
dry
really
as a
well.
Dead dingo's donger, as my mum would say.
So part of the thing about it is the chocolate layer actually helps to keep the sponge fairly moist.
Yep.
All right, it stops it from completely drying out. Now you can get them with and without cream in the middle as well.
You can also get them with and without jam or anything in the middle.
Yes.
It's just pure sponge.
Sometimes you get pure sponge just covered in the chocolate and then the desiccated coconut. And it's got to be desiccated, not fresh.
No.
It's got to be dried coconut.
Yeah. None of this fancy shit.
No. And again, it's not a high class, traditionally a high class thing.
No, a lot of the times, like, because they're easy to make. Well, I say easy to make. You can make a lot of them from the ingredients.
Well, look.
They're usually made for, like, school fundraisers and fetes.
Yeah.
You know, the Country Women's Association will do a Leamington
You buy them in
fundraiser.
bulk. You buy them in bulk at a supermarket. You buy them at a bakery.
I don't know. Did your school ever do Leamington drives?
Yeah, we did Lamington drives. Yes.
Where you can sell like trays of
You
Lamington.
get trays of Lamingtons to sell to family.
It's brilliant.
Family know they're coming around. Oh, it's Lamington drive time again. Go and see your auntie and uncle and sell them a couple of trays of Lamingtons, will you?
It's almost like Girl Scout cookie time, but it's Lamingtons.
And they're a bit better. Now, in terms of the Lamington, I'm going to say that, and I'm not saying this as a shot at anybody. They're not what I would consider a tricky bake. But the reason they're such a good technical is there's two reasons. One, all of the elements are simple baking, but you've got to do them well because there's nowhere to hide. Secondly, it's about the fact they've never heard of the damn things.
Yeah, but I think it's also when you because there is that mess. Like when you're like say, like doing fried chicken for the first time, and you don't know to use different hands for wet and dry or how to manage that. It's similar with this Lamington thing. You don't quite have the whole whipping it into the chocolate and whipping the coconut onto it.
Yep, and I know there are a lot of people trying to work out, do you use hands, do you use fork? You can use
Forks.
a fork. You don't actually have to handle it.
My mum used to use skewers.
Yeah, what is usually a good way to do it is a skewer. You put a skewer through, and obviously not through the side bit where you've cut it.
No.
Because what normally happens is as well, it's not necessarily a flat tray bake, although it would have been a flat tray bake for this to make the time work.
Yeah.
But normally you use a normal cake tin. And you bake it, you cut it, you rise them up, and then you cut them into squares, and you slice them down the middle.
Yeah.
And then you can separate it out, fill them up, sandwich
it.
And then what you do is you put the skewer through top and bottom, you dip it into the chocolate, you spin it around on the thing in the chocolate, you go to the coconut, you spin it around in the coconut, done. You don't touch it, you don't put your hands on it, you put it on the rack, it dries.
It's helpful if you're using a skewer because, usually, people are up cooking for their children's school fete. So it's like your bake sales, and like the bake store or whatever, the cake stall. And, it's midnight, getting to 1 a.m., vampire comes around, you can stab him with a skewer.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if there's a bit of coconut on it.
Lamingtons and stabbing. It's all good. So I thought that it's a really clever technical in that regard. So you've got to get the elements right. You can't hide. And you saw this in the thing. You can't hide. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. The consistency of the chocolate can either be too thin or too thick.
Yeah.
The jam in the middle it's got to be a little grainy.
Yeah, but not too grainy.
But if it's too grainy, you notice. And if it's too smooth, it doesn't quite work
and not
either.
chunky. This is not jam on a scone.
Yeah.
Level.
No, it's not. And the bake quality has to be good, otherwise the cake falls apart.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different aspects that are actually a really clever thing. Now,
should we actually get to what the bakers did?
Well, that's what I'm into.
Okay, brilliant.
But remember, it's a technical. There's not a lot to talk about in a technical.
That's true.
That's why I'm doing the history. That's why we're doing the history.
This is why they need to do more technicals based on Australian shit.
Now, I loved...
What do you call this? A cob loaf.
I loved the spread where they were like, I know what they look like, but I've never made one, to a bunch of people going, I've never seen one, never made one, don't know. And look, I'm literally not making fun of anybody, but it's nice when you hear some of these Canadian bakes and we go, never heard of that, and have to look it up and work out what the hell it is. It's really nice to be able to sit back and go, this is funny.
Because there's a lot of times when technicals come out, you go, I've never heard of that, and shoes on the other foot
It's
this time.
our moment to sit there and laugh and go, oh, look at them panicking over Lamingtons.
But you know what? Even if I was in the pavilion and I was up for baking and they brought out Lamingtons, I would shit myself.
Now, can I just say...
There would be pucks flying everywhere.
Yeah, can I just say, thank you to Kyla for the wonderful sentence. Our Australian friends... Bruno said, our Australian friends really know how to make a delicious cake. Why, yes, we do. Thank you, Bruno. And thank you, Kyla, for setting it.
I know how to eat a delicious cake myself. But,
yeah,
take it for a make it.
Now, it was fun to watch everyone freak out. So Vincent turns around, Alan goes, what do you need from me? And Vincent's like, praise and love. It's like, I got you, man. You got this. It was great.
Now we need more, kind of like, need an Alan app where he just, sends you random,
like positive messages of the day.
Yeah, just lifts you up.
Affirmation of the day with Alan.
Yes.
So I'm here for it. We got to watch, obviously, the baking of the cake is not that involved. Although, again, they were smoothing it out. And they're like, do we smooth it out in the tray? Do we fold it?
You don't want to check the sponge. You want to let it rise.
No, you got to let the sponge rise.
What do you call this stuff? Sponge
cake. So, and then they got to make jam. Now, making jam in Bake Off is always hilarious.
Yes.
But especially when it says to fold in a little bit of the pulp.
Every time now I hear fold in, I just hear Moira's voice. It's fold in the cheese.
Fold in the cheese.
What does that mean? So everyone's having a guess at how much pulp to pop in.
And Elena had a really... Again, you laughed in the opening credits at the moment, and then it popped up in the episode, and you laughed again. I want a GIF.
Yes.
Elena deciding that the best way to mix her jam was to stab it with the back of a knife.
Look, we all have those impulses.
Grabbing the handle of the knife and just going stab, 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 going, if it works, it's not stupid.
Kylie didn't get to be the queen of pop by playing it safe.
She also didn't get anywhere in the technical, but we'll come to that in a minute. I wonder if it was a decoy. So partially strained jam just means you want a grainy. Now again, I personally like the cream element inside it, but I'm perfectly okay with them not having the cream element inside it.
Look, I'm a whimsical Lamington eater.
The cream element needs...
I will eat whatever's given to me.
Now, the other thing about Lamingtons, just if you're using cream, it needs to be mock cream.
Yeah, don't use the real stuff.
But the reason why it needs to be mock cream is about it going off. Because if you use fresh cream, your Lamingtons won't keep that long. So it's got to be mock cream.
I presume they have mock cream elsewhere.
They do. They call it other things, but yeah, it's mock cream. We call it mock cream.
Like pastry cream.
Yeah, it's really sweet.
Cream.
It's really sweetened. The idea of it is that it's not going off anytime soon.
Old Mockery's cream.
Now, Elena was 6 short.
Oh, Elena.
Now, how do you end up 6 short in a challenge of 20? I was amazed. And then I loved her attempted cover. We're just going to cut these ones in half and hope. And it was like, you couldn't tell.
No.
Not at all.
It was perfectly serviceable.
Now,
nothing to see here.
Poor Kunal.
This just...
2 things happened. First of all, he turns around to Amy and he goes, and not thinking, she heard it, she started laughing, which was, is your bottom coated as well? And she's giggling, and he's like, really seriously, is your bottom coated? And she's like, yes, my bottom is coated. And he's like, okay.
I've got to coat my bottom.
Like, he's really focusing, and she's just giggling. And then they go,
I feel like Amy and I would have the same sense of humour. He said bottom. He wanted to know if it's coated.
And then they went, time is up. And all you hear is Kunal go, I dropped one. So he now has 19. Not 20. So let's get to the judgment. Now, before we get to the judgment, Anne called them Lamos. Now...
You know, I like that because she's like, Australians shorten things with an O at the end.
She's got the philosophy and the theory right. No one's ever called them Lamos.
Until now.
But the theory of shorten everything with an O at the end of it, pretty good.
Yeah.
O or A.
Yeah.
So, again,
Lemons.
like McDonald's in Australia, Macca's. There's an A, and we just shorten it AS.
Yeah.
Right?
Barry, Bazza.
So it's an A, Shazza. Right? It's an A.
Darren, Dazza.
Yeah. It's an A or an O.
Maybe they should be called Lazzers. No, that would be Larry.
No, workers going for a smoke break, Smoko.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it's either an O or an A. So Anne has the theory spot on.
Like if it's an afternoon, Arvo.
Arvo, exactly. Yeah. So like again, close.
Yeah.
Very close.
No, I like it though. And I am confused as to why Australians haven't done this. Because, like, why is there deference to this cake that is, you know, yes, it was made for Lord Lamington.
We hold our national treasures in high regard.
I don't even know who fucking Lord Lamington... I didn't know
Nobody...
there was a Lord Lamington until, like, 10 minutes before the podcast. I go, I want to know about the history. Where the fuck did Lamingtons come from?
I don't know why you bothered, but anyway. Because, like, we know enough about Lamingtons. You know, Lord Lamington doesn't matter, and that's the point.
You should know where your bakes come from, though.
I know where my bakes come from. The bakery. Anyway, so, let's get to the judging, shall we?
Yes.
So, Marion, they said the cake was dense, good flavour, but all of them were a bit different shapes. Elena's were very inconsistent. It's almost like she tried to make up extra batches at the end.
Yeah, but she had to do a Terry. You know, like when Terry was trying to say, "I'm not."
Pretend that she didn't know much about Australia.
Yeah. She's like, "Oh, look
not
over
Kylie
there."
Minogue, yeah.
I don't know a Lamington.
The cake was a bit gummy and dense. You don't want a gummy Lamington. You really
No.
don't. Amy's looked more uniform. They said the cake was really good, but the chocolate was a little bit too thick. Mm-hmm. And you could see, some of them you could see a really thick layer of chocolate.
Yeah.
Steve's were uniform and well baked. Simple.
Yeah.
Amanda's were a bit inconsistent. And now this is the thing that confused me. When they showed her putting her Lamingtons together, she had far too much jam between those two layers. When they tested her Lamington, there was no jam between the layers. Where did Amanda's jam go?
Did it just all ooze out? Was her jam like the slime in Ghostbusters 2 that responds to emotions? And someone was playing "Keep on lifting me higher," and the jam's just blobbed off.
The jam ran off of its own accord.
Yeah.
It was so beautifully done that it disappeared.
Yeah.
Vincent's, they said it was more covered in some spots. You can see there were some really white bits and then there's some not so white bits. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. There's nowhere to hide because Lamingtons show up everything because of the contrast.
Like when I try and get a tan at the beach, there's lots of white bits and not so white bits.
Kunal was missing one for a start. They said they were a bit inconsistent and the cake was a bit gummy. Karen's jam was really good, but they said that she needed more especially on the chocolate. Needed a little bit more on that. Dougal, the coconut looked great. They said that it was very aerated, and they said it had good chocolate, so that was not too bad.
I spoke to
Now, and Stephen, they pointed out, Bruno said this person's obviously a lover of coconut. He'd really gone overboard on the coconut. The cake was really light, but there was too much raspberry jam, and it was far too grainy, so he'd put too much back in there.
Oh, he was just over generous with his ingredients.
So, Elena was 10th, Kunal was 9th, Amanda was 8th, Stephen 7th, Dougal 6th, Marion 5th, Karen 4, Vincent 3, Amy 2, and Steve 1.
Numero uno.
Well done, Steve. That's from Australia to you. Well done.
Yes, you're now an honorary Australian, and we'll reunite you with Australian Steve soon.
Yes. The showstopper.
When we get a sponsor.
Yes, the showstopper.
Yes.
The fault line cake.
Ooh, yes.
Now, a fault line cake, I usually just... A geode cake.
Yeah, but a geode cake
is a specific type of fault line.
Yeah, it's got the look of a crystals in it.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I know it's a specific type, but I'm saying I know it more for the geode.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, why doesn't someone do a geode? Don't worry. They did. 3.5 hours to do this challenge. Now, this is always what you want to see in a first episode of Bake Off because you want to see something which is multi-tiered.
Yep.
And
a little bit pretty, a little bit spectacular.
And it's also about structure.
Mm-hmm.
So you want a structural bake at some point because you want to be able to see how the quality of their bake holds up.
Yeah, and if they choose their filling correctly to not undo the structure of the cake.
Now, Vincent opens with his champagne celebration cake. Now, again, he's in Canada. So it's a sparkling celebration cake. It's not from the cake champagne region. White chocolate collar and a twill. So white chocolate collar, again, another thing that normally in Bake Off you panic.
That is the risotto.
And they went, here's a white chocolate collar, and it worked
perfectly.
There was no drama. I'm like, well, that's unusual.
Yeah.
Now, I loved the colours on that cake for Vincent too. It was really, the colours just popped. That pink was very vibrant.
And what I liked is that his fault line actually took off the top of the cake, like it wasn't through the middle.
No, it was really clever.
Yeah.
Really clever. Steve's Queen Bee cake. Now, I love the story, with the tattoo, the bee kind for his partner on the tattoo. the espresso and caramel cake with sponge toffee. There's sponge toffee again making another appearance. And
See,
a lot of
it
coffee.
would have been better if it was called honeycomb for this one.
And it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Could have called it honeycomb.
Maybe his part of Canada calls it honeycomb, but they're not allowed to because, like...
Not from the sparkling region?
Not
Not from the honeycomb region of Canada. Can only be known as sponge toffee. Now, Marion was baking like me. Her bench was very me. It was very James.
We'll call you avant-garde from now on.
Yes, they came over and they're like, love your bench. It was just everywhere.
She was inhabiting the spirit of James there.
She was. Well, especially there was stout in the batter too.
There was too.
There was. Now, she made a cherry and sakura buttercream.
Which sounds delicious.
Did. We'll come back to poor Marion later on because there was a moment. Now, Dougal. Dougal went the other way. Like we talked before about, obviously, Vincent going no butter. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about Kunal deciding, no, we need to have some buttercream. Dougal goes, who doesn't like butter? Butter is my favourite food. And somewhere in the back, you just heard Bruno's ears prick up and he went, I like him.
But this just shows you that studying the Bake Off franchise,
pays off.
It pays off.
Can I just point out, like, again, he did chocolate and peanut butter, making his own birthday cake, as one should. But far more importantly, we had our own jam made.
Yeah.
Dougal made his own peanut butter.
I missed that.
Yeah, you missed that. You were browsing something.
Dougal probably looking up Leamington.
Dougal makes his own peanut butter.
Bloody hell.
I'm impressed.
I'm glad he doesn't make it like the way my uncle told my cousin peanut butter's made.
Oh, no.
So my uncle, he's very country.
I know where this is going.
And my little nephew, cousin, would refuse to eat peanut butter because his dad had told him that you feed peanuts to monkey, then you pull their tail and it comes out their bottom. And that's how you make peanut butter. So peanut butter, apparently, according to my Uncle John, is monkey poo.
Yeah. So that's obviously something to be worried about. I wouldn't eat that. Amy. Now, she based it on
it's handy when you go to the zoo and you forget your lunch and you manage to get some bread, but nothing's got it, but the monkeys fling some
I mean, the thing is, there are people that will happily drink elephant poo coffee.
What? No, isn't it that other animal?
No, but there's an elephant poo one as well.
What? How fucking big is the coffee bean?
I mean, I don't want to be the poor guy, work experience kid that has to go through the leavings. What's your job? I go through leavings. For what? Fine. Coffee beans.
I mean, it takes them 9 years to gestate a baby. How long does it take them to gestate a poo?
It's like distilled, like whiskey. The finest fermented poo. No, sorry, it's gonna be classy. The finest fermented leavings. Okay, Amy. Now she based it on a trip to the Grand Canyon, and like the color scheme that she came up with, I like it because it was different. It was that orangey red sort of sunset color that was just beautiful. The painted on cacti, I love the painted on cacti,
and the gold leaf.
I could hear somebody over in Western Australia going, "Gold leaf."
Yes, Rochelle Adonis.
Rochelle Adonis somewhere went, oh my God, there's gold leaf.
Yes. You throw down butter in a pentacle, you summon Bruno. You throw
gold
down
leaf somewhere, Rochelle's ears pricked up.
Yeah.
So again, vanilla toffee cake with espresso buttercreams. A lot of coffee as well. I like these people.
Yes, they're your people.
They're my people, lots of coffee. Now, Karen.
But was it elephant poo coffee?
No. Now, Karen went with stressy, depressy, lemon zesty.
That's a pick-me-up.
That's a bit of a pick-me-up. Now, Karen, I loved that. I thought that was very clever. I thought that was very funny.
How long have you been working on it? Because that is not something that rolls off the tongue.
That's plant material, and I like it. But secondly...
I just like to think that every time she uses lemon, it's when she purges her angst.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
But we need to talk, Karen. We need to have a talk. Now...
Oh, here we go.
Every year someone has to get this conversation, and I'm sorry it's you. I'm very sorry it's you. Karen...
People just tune out for the moment.
No. Excuse me, this is... If I don't tell them, they will never learn.
Keep going. Get it over with.
Matcha. Let's talk. Not again. All right? Look, Pandan appeared. That was a lovely green colour. That was magnificent. That was brilliant. That was wonderful. Matcha is weak. It's a weak way out. And I, for one, think you're better than that. Anyway, I've lost my co-host. Let's move on. So...
I was like,
here we go again. Let's go to Stephen, because Stephen decided to actually make the geocake.
That was beautiful.
I
and he chose
loved
an
it.
amethyst look. That's my birthstone.
It was very pretty. And again,
like
chocolate espresso sponge and salted caramel.
Yes.
Now, the salted caramel might have been a bit salty.
Yes.
I like the way when Bruno gets to the judging of it, and Bruno's like, everything's salty. Even the buttercream is salty. And you saw him go, oh, it bled through everything, did it?
He's like, I was trying to be the new Salt Bay.
Now, good news. We've been looking to freshen up some of obviously, we have a bunch of tours that go on related to Bake Off.
Yes.
And we've been looking to freshen up some of the tours and add some new talent.
Well, COVID has come and gone, and it's opened up new channels that we really need to be fostering, and that is the youth market.
Yes, exactly.
Listening to your bakes.
Now, listen to your bakes. Obviously, we have Val. We have a couple of Canadians, obviously, involved in this as well. We've also got a couple of Australians involved in this.
Oh, yeah, Noel.
But we need the youth market.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Because Amy has given us the youth market in Listen to Your Bakes. She'll be on tour. She can open up for the kiddies.
She can, and
she can TikTok it.
And she'll open up a new market as well. Runners. Might even get the triathletes. At least for a third of it.
Yeah, you'll get them for 1/3. Get the running third out of the way.
Yeah.
Now, Kunal. Now, Kunal made a life statement where he said that all sins can be covered in buttercream. Now, Kunal, question. Is that all sins can be covered in buttercream or all sins should be covered in buttercream?
Now, the Catholic Church is always looking for ways to jazz up its...
Yeah.
Much like we are trying to, attract the youth and the runners
yes.
to listen to your bakes. Catholic Church are always trying to, attract new people. And here's another way to cover up people's sins.
Buttercream. Exactly. Like it used to be around planetary indulgences, and paying to get into heaven. Now, buttercream.
Just
who knew?
Whip it on. You go into confession. And
forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Well, I can't see it. All I can see is buttercream.
You take 5 Hail Marys in his piping bag.
So, I mean, a lot of sins can be covered in buttercream.
This rosary is quite tasty now.
There was also edible gold paint. He had a black sesame sponge and a grapefruit curd. Now, this is the moment where we learned what Alan did in lockdown, clearly, which was learn first position.
I like to think that, you know how you can get those free, you can do one free online class as a taster.
Alan just did first position.
Yeah,
That's
he did intro to ballet, first position.
That's all he's got. Doesn't have more than that, but wow, he's a bandit for first position.
Yeah, look, I started ballet when I was 2, not tooting my own horn, because really I just ran around on stage in a pink tutu and that was my life.
That is ballet. Anyway.
That was just last week.
Amanda, pineapple cake with buttercream hummingbirds. I love the way that everyone else was very sort of, the way they did their palettes was she was like an artist.
Yeah.
She laid out the buttercream and had them all done like it was a painter's palette.
She's prepping for the Catholic Church. She's like, this is how you can do it.
Yeah, she can paint murals.
What kind of sin is it? Oh, it's a mortal sin. Here, have mauve.
I love the way she had them all pre-mixed like she was about to paint something. It was fantastic. It was beautiful. She did. She painted a hummingbird. I thought that was really cool. Now, Elena with a chess-themed cake.
Yes. I just don't think there was enough singing by, rival chess players.
She's hiding. Again.
Oh, that's true,
So
Kylie.
she couldn't open up the chess singing aspect.
No.
Because she'd unveiled the Kylie aspect.
Oh,
Ben and Bjorn's work must go unrecognised.
Yeah, and she would just be like... Oh,
she's also sung a bunch of ABBA stuff, so it'd be really obvious.
It is, and she just released a disco album, which
she
would
did.
So I think it's just...
And she was all over ABBA TikTok before they released their new album stuff, so obvious.
Yeah.
Well done, Elena, for hiding.
Yes.
Now, it looked really cool. She had Romanian sour cherries in there as well, with a vanilla sour cream cake. Mm-hmm. Then we cut back to Steve. Now, there were some sentences in there that were it was good to hear, because we don't get a lot of the risque stuff in Canadian.
No, but when you get it, it's top
What
shelf.
we did get, however, was Steve saying to himself, Steve, are you sure you want to do 2 6-inches with an 8-incher on top? Now, that is not what I expect to hear on Canadian broadcasting.
No, it is something I think I've heard my other friend Steve say, but in a different context.
Moving on.
And now I have my friend Gabby laughing, who listens to the podcast.
She'll be cackling.
And we'll know what I'm talking about.
Now, Kunaal decided he wanted to do the corrugated effect. Now, when he suggested cardboard, I was concerned.
Yeah, I'm like, that's
going to... I've seen what happens when a cake moves in a box and it sticks to the cardboard.
Yeah.
It just peels.
But then I was thinking, oh, maybe it's that kind of, like plastic coated cardboard, or
so here's the
oiled
thing.
it.
I think if he chilled the buttercream, I think he probably tested this in an environment where the buttercream could be chilled.
Yeah.
You're inside the pavilion, which is warm, and therefore, because you're inside the warm pavilion, it's going to run.
See, I think if you're training for Bake Off, you should move to Australia, probably like somewhere like, closer to the Tropic of Capricorn.
Yep.
To start training for what it's like to bake in it in the...
How to make buttercream set in really hot temperatures.
Yeah, while you have a large bird-eating spider walk past you.
I mean, that's not the part in Canada, but that's...
No. It just adds that extra... that would be your host or your judge. That would be your Bruno. Your bird-eating spider Bruno.
Now we got our quality Canadian moment of the day, which was Dougal. Now, so Marion
Every time you hear say Dougal, I can hear Dougal from Outlander. Give me a little...
See, I just think Father Ted. Anyway, so...
We've got to lose the sax solo.
So Marion's cake starts to collapse. Now, my first thought was where she ended up, which was, well, it's a fault cake.
The tectonic shift.
Run with it. And she tried to in the judging where she went, no, I meant it. I took it literally. It was just a collapse. But you can see... she avoided the complete collapse, which was really well done, because there was a moment where I was sure the whole thing was going.
Yeah.
She avoided the complete collapse, and then Dougal just looks at her and goes, hey, you're excellent. You're outstanding. You're a brilliant baker. You've got this. I'm like, oh, Dougal.
See, I think we just need a bake-off app. Like, not just Alan, bake-off app.
Just a button that says, you're wonderful. You're magnificent. You can do this.
Love and praise. Love and praise.
Now, Steve at this point also said that I'm worried about it falling, because that's always the worry with this cake. Now...
I said, well, that would attract Alicia Keys, because she's always falling.
That, for me, makes it an interesting choice for week 1 bake-off. What are you going to do? Going to do a cake that always falls over. That's what my plan is. What happens to it? Oh, it always falls. Every time I make it.
So susceptible to gravity.
So Kunal's buttercream obviously didn't set, and that effect didn't work. And that put him behind the 8 ball, and the cake was largely undecorated. So let's get into the judging. Now... Steve is told to bring up his cake and be careful by Alan, at which point Kyla seems like she's going to avoid it and then looks at him and goes, this cake is the bee's knees. Double whammy. Well played everybody. Now this is where Kyla referred to the cake as whimsical, which, you can hear Jude at home going, yes, my influence.
Yes.
Good concept. The contrast in the cake was really good, especially with the geode. Bruno loved the toffee. The whole thing looked amazing.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Put my order in for my birthday. Got till February to get it out here, Stephen. Just saying.
Steve, work out how to get it out here by February. You're fine. Vincent, Kyla loved the collar, and they said that both said it looked very professional.
Yeah.
It cut really well. The only problem was they said that it needed the more acidic part to balance out the champagne.
Yeah.
That was the only issue with it. I also love the way when he opened it, he didn't just slightly open it, he popped the cork and there we go, party's on.
They just finished their Bikram yoga class.
I'd love to hang out with Vincent. So Karen, they said the depth of her cake looked really good, but the edges weren't quite clean. So they said if you had the cleaner edge with the depth, the contrast would have worked beautifully.
This is something I've observed. So with the cakes that work really well with this fault line is if there's different textures and a clear delineation between the where the ripped part and the part on the outside.
Yeah, it makes it look more harsh. Yeah. Which makes it stand out more. And Bruno said that the mix of flavours, which he wasn't 100% sure of, actually went quite well. Now, Dougal, they said the piping on top was absolutely brilliant, but the fault needed more definition. But his piping, the waves that he got, I'm staggered by his piping. Mm-hmm. And they also said the cake was a little bit sticky. Now, Marion again tries to cover it by saying, I meant it.
Yep.
It's a fault cake. They said in a blind tasting you would have actually had the top cake because the flavour was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Elena, they said the attention to detail on the outside was excellent. And I love the chess pieces. Yeah. I love the way it looked. They cut it open. Cake wasn't cooked properly.
Yeah.
And that was the second time that had happened.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen, they said the fault line actually had really good depth on the geode. And it did. I loved his geode. But they said that the salt had gone through everything.
Yes, it was a salty geode. See, he was just making it more like a rock, because like salt's a
Salt.
crystal and salt comes
Exactly.
from all the sea.
It was just
Most of
accurate.
Yeah. He's
now-
like, you can be a Roman. He's like, I'm just showing you I'm a decadent Roman. Ancient
Now,
Roman. Pay
Amanda-
my soldiers.
Now, Amanda, they said, was a dramatic showstopper with all the painting and the hummingbird. Looked really good. They said that the layering was really consistent.
And she makes a good carrot cake.
As Bruno said, you want to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm fine with that.
It's a vegetable
It is. Now,
contained in delicious cake.
Kunal, they said, unfortunately, it wasn't finished, and that was the problem. But
Do you
they
think
said,
Amanda was just going to make a normal cake, but there was so much leftover carrot from...
that was only one carrot. It
That was just the one carrot.
was 3 tiers, 1 carrot.
They're still going at it. It's going to be the communal carrot for the next.
Can
like,
we find
9
out where?
episodes.
Can we find out where you got those carrots? They're huge.
Probably Megan's farm.
Probably.
Megan's goth farm.
She
Like,
does
that
have,
was just
and the Goth Farm would do carrots.
from the mutant bunny field.
So yeah, Kunal's was not finished, unfortunately, but the cake was good. But they just said it wasn't quite finished, and that was the problem. And Amy's, they said they loved the look of the fault line, and they said her flavours, which was the apple mixed in flavour
Yeah.
with the coffee, I think it was unusual but worked. They said it was rich but not heavy.
Yeah.
This was the judging was interesting, as they said they were going to lose a good baker, regardless of what happened.
Yeah.
Steve wins Star Baker. That was perfectly understandable. He had a great first week.
Yeah.
The going home court was really tough. Kunal, unfortunately, a couple of underbaked cakes, couple of unfinished cakes.
It was just like it was bad luck. We've seen this happen to so many people, like Pierre.
Poor Pierre with the collar comes off and the whole mousse cake just runs away.
Yeah, it's heat.
Yeah.
And it's the tent. And
There's
it's
not much
the
you can do
pavilion.
about it, unfortunately, when
Yeah.
it happens. So, Kunal, I'm disappointed we're not going to get to see everything that Kunal can do, because I get the feeling it would have been absolutely brilliant.
But on an upside, he's now been brought in by Kylie Minogue to audition her new kind of disco
Dancers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, Elena's gone, hey, can you keep a secret?
Yeah.
Stick around.
Yes.
I'm going to need you later on.
Yeah, it's like when Kylie reworks one of her songs to be a different genre in one of her shows. Like she does slow as a nice, actual slow burlesque kind of thing.
I wonder, just before we go quickly, I wonder if the carrots were brought to Canada by the fruit pirate. Maybe he's delineated into vegetables and he's got these massive vegetables. Remember we talked about the idea of there was this...
It's COVID. You got to do what you can.
Remember we talked about the idea last series that, of course, we're talking, of course, about Mahathi's father, who's the fruit pirate.
The fruit pirate.
You should all know this by now,
Yeah.
obviously. It's common knowledge.
Yeah.
But, yeah, indeed. But we talked about this idea of, the lost treasure. Mm-hmm. Maybe these carrots
Yes.
were part of the lost treasure.
Absolutely, because they're golden. Like it's like when you go get the goose that lays the golden egg. Like that goose didn't just lay small golden eggs, like big ones. Like these are just like.
Is this
the
a rabbit?
field.
Is this a rabbit
that
laying
lays-
giant carrots?
Yes.
As is my Easter understanding, of course.
Yes, it's not these jelly beans that they show you in fucking.
No, rabbits lay giant carrots.
I have a thought. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm just going to put it out there because it didn't fit in anywhere we're talking. But I just thought if Jasmine Linton,
Yes.
bakeress extraordinaire, and also forensic scientist,
friend of the show.
friend of the show.
And mother, who's friend of the show.
yes. I was just thinking if she was doing
Exactly.
a fault cake, it would be like human skin, right, ripped open to like have the inside, like it would be like, what's it called, biologically
Accurate.
like.
All right. So
Liver and
to
heart.
finish up.
And the heart would pump out blood.
To finish up, past bakers.
Yes.
Let us know what you would have made for a really out there rib cake. Like,
Or what you think another baker would have made.
yeah, or pick someone else and dob them in.
Yeah.
Right? Either or at this point. Don't really care which one. Let us know. We'll talk about it next week. Yeah. So, that's your lot for this week. It is delightful
It is.
to be back in the world of Canadian.
Oh, it's quite uplifting. It had some sad times. For those who don't know, you've been listening to the podcast for a while. You hear me have mentioned my mum and that she got sick. Unfortunately, she died a couple of weeks ago. She had a beautiful death. We were all there with her. She got to see the rugby league grand final.
What was important to her?
Yes, Chris had cooked her many palmiers. So, she went well. But yeah, just wanted to say it might seem weird that I'm back doing a podcast so quickly. But when I asked Mum, how will I know you? She said, through laughter. So here we are, having a laugh.
Here we are, back and having a laugh.
Yeah.
So, that's your lot for this week. We will be back next week to talk about more Canadian Bake Off.
Oh, yeah.
So, until then, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
Praise and love, people. Praise and love.